Yeah, so today we are in the induction class for geography, whereby we will be discussing that how to approach geography, which are the important areas. Then we will be discussing a basic topic of geography, which will also give me the hint that how much you people understand geography. When was the last when you people read geography? How many years back? Who has read it during their graduation? Just raise your hands. One. Others? Okay, no one has read it in graduation. Now, who all remember that you read geography in school days? In which class? 11th or 12th? Did you read? 10th में तो सबने पढ़ी है. Fine, fine. So, in this class, we already now have the examination overview. After that, we will see the approach that how for the examination you have to read geography. As we have continuously discussed that the subjects remain the same, the approach differs. The same geography has to be read in a different manner when you are preparing for SSC. Same geography has to be read in entirely different manner when you are preparing for UPSC, and same geography has to be read in completely different manner when you are having geography as your graduation or post graduation subject. The subject remains the same, the approach differs, and hence we will understand that what is the approach which is required for geography for this examination from GS perspective. The third thing is the geography for UPSC. Here we will discuss that which are the important areas in geography. I hope that even from the 10th standard we do remember some of the basics, that there was some things known as latitudes, longitudes, earth tilted axis. There was something known as plate tectonics when the mountains were built. Do we remember these things? Just the keyword. Do we know that there is something known as Himalayas? Right? Indian Ocean, India as a territory, India as a land. बस यही geography है. ठीक है? And towards the last, we will be having a question answer session. So if you have any doubts towards the end of the class, you can ask. Even in between also, if you have some conceptual doubt, obviously you can ask. If there is some general doubt, so that we will deal towards the end of the class. Fine? Is it fine to everyone? Okay. So out of all the subjects which we know in the syllabus, here is where stands geography as well as environment. So both of these topics are very important. Why we write geography and environment together? Because the basics of the environment come from geography only, right? What do you understand by environment? What is environment? Anyone? How do you understand that what is environment? Someone please define it. Huh? So simply environment can be defined as the surroundings around us. Environment is just a surrounding. So if I am standing in this class is my environment. In this environment, there is obviously me, and I am a living thing, living being. Then there are these lights, there is this screen, there is this pen, there is wall, there is ceiling. These are non-living things. So all these surroundings is known as the environment, which comprises of biotic factors as well as abiotic factors, that is living beings as well as non-living things. Now it just depends that at what scale you want to read or study the environment. This class is one environment, this institute is a larger environment, this area, old Rajendra Nagar Karol Bagh, is larger environment. Beyond it, Delhi is an environment. Beyond it, India is an environment. Beyond this, world is an environment. Beyond this, entire atmosphere, ecosystem, everything is a part of environment only. तो वो size differ करता है. Why it differs? Because we need to study a particular thing. We cannot study each and everything if we, let's say, take entire world as one environment. Okay. So it all depends on the phenomena which we are studying. But in simple terms, this environment is what? Surroundings. Now this environment is built out of biotic and abiotic factors. So that means in this environment, can we say that soil will be a factor, like humans are factor, organisms are factor, soil will be a factor, temperature will be a factor, precipitation will be a factor, mountains will be a factor, resource will be a factor. Everything which is there in your surroundings will be a component of the environment. That is why when we study geography, it will form the basics of environment. Geography will tell you that, let's say, how rainfall is varying across regions. For example, in India, we know in Rajasthan we have a very minimum amount of rainfall. On the other hand, we have Meghalaya, we have Cherrapunji, Mawsynram, one of the wettest places of the world. So now within one country, at one extreme, we have the driest areas where we receive less than 25 centimeter of rainfall. And on the other extreme, we have the wettest areas where we receive more than 1000 centimeter of rainfall. Why this rainfall is varying, this will be told to you by geography. Once you understood all the geographical factors which impact this rainfall variation and distribution, now obviously it will be a direct outcome on the vegetation. So in deserts you will be having cactus. In Meghalaya you will be having evergreen forests. When we say that rainfall is impacting, let's say, forest types are what? Environment, right? If forest types are getting different, then obviously the species living it will be different. So you cannot find elephant in a desert area. Itna mota hai, khayega kya wahan pe? So it will not find enough food to survive. You will only find elephants in the dense forest areas because of the availability of food resources. You will not find cheetah in a very dense forest. भागता इतना तेज है, पेड़ में टकरा जाएगा. So you will find cheetahs in the open grassland areas, which will give it enough space to run to reach 100 kilometers per hour of speed. It cannot be possible there in the dense forest areas. That is why you will see that why giraffe's neck is longer. Everything depends on the environment. Why in evergreen forest? Do we know what are evergreen forests? Is there some image in your mind? For example, Amazon forests. They are the evergreen forests which never shed their leaves, no matter rainfall is coming or not. Right? In evergreen forest, the trees are closely packed. They are very dense forest. If you are caught in evergreen forest, तो पता नहीं बाहर आओगे कि नहीं आओगे. Now, because the density is so high, which means that the trees will be competing with each other to have the sunlight, because the canopy is so dense, the forest, the trees are so dense that it will not allow the solar insolation to reach to the surface of the forest. Right? Why? Because the canopy is very dense. Hence the light is not reaching to the surface. But plants need light. So plants will keep on increasing their height to get that light. That is why in evergreen forest you will be having the tallest trees of the world. The point being that that is how geography and environment are related to each other. Okay? The things which we are discussing, that how natural environment is impacting something, this is known as basically, the environmental determinism. We need to understand that how these physical factors impact the things, not just the wild species, even the humans. Why do we wear cotton clothes during summers and woolen clothes during winters? Because the sunlight is changing. In summers you are exposed to higher sunlight, hence you have altered the choice in terms of clothing. In winters, because the sunlight is less and temperature has gone down, so you need woolen clothes. That is how the external environment is impacting your clothing patterns, your decisions. Not just the clothing patterns, think about the food habits. The food habits also change. In summers, you eat something different, in winters, you eat different. Not just about food habits, just think about your body structure. So, see the average height in South India versus average height of the people living in Kashmir versus average height of people living in Europe. So, as you are moving up towards the north, the average height of the people are increasing, the body mass is increasing. Why does it happen? Because environment is changing. Think about the skin color. If you are in the lower areas near the equator, the skin colors are darker. When you move into the temperate areas in the higher latitudes, the skin color. हेलो सारे बच्चे, हाँ अभी कम आए हैं. हाँ, अभी 4-5 हैं. Yeah, is it visible? Is it audible to everyone? Am I audible to everyone? Okay, thank you, Vikas. हाँ. Okay, switch on our cameras again. It happens when we are heavily dependent on technology, so we sometimes become handicapped. एक छोटा सा ग्लिच और सब खत्म. Okay, so we were discussing environmental determinism. Environmental determinism is that everything is determined by the environment. For example, we were discussing the skin color. So you will see the darker skin complexions when you are in the near to the equatorial areas. You will see fairer skin complexions when you are into the European countries. Why is this happening? There is nothing like racial superiority. It is just an outcome of the climate in which we are living. If there is a climate which is characterized by high temperature and high humidity levels, the skin color will be dark. If there is a climate where the humidity is not that much, sweating is less, precipitation is less, temperatures are moderate, you will be having a fairer skin complexion, right? Understood? So this is environmental determinism. That environment is determining everything. Even our thought processes are determined by the environment. So the proponents, the believers of this philosophy say that everything is controlled by environment. In your households, have you heard about such things कि in Hindi is in northern India generally it is said कि जो भाग्य में लिखा होता है वही होता है. Everything is predetermined, everything is destiny. That is determinism. That humans are basically the passive agent, environment is an active agent. Everything is done by nature and humans have no control. How many of you agree with this thing? Yes. How many of you agree with this thing that everything is governed by environment and humans are just a passive agent? We just have to obey the laws of the nature. Do you agree with this? Yes or no? Jatin agrees to this and others. Chehek does not agree with this. What about others? Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, middle path. To some extent. Now, this is a general answer which is true for almost every question, such type of question. So, because the truth never lies on the extremes, it is always somewhere in between. For example, yes, we agree environmental determinism is true up to an extent. For example, uh, you cannot build your house on Mars as of now. Why? Because environmental factors do not allow you to go and travel to Mars, take the concrete and build your homes over there. This is environmental determinism. You cannot grow evergreen forest in Thar desert. Why? Because it is not allowing you to do so. For example, we discuss that you will not find elephants in desert areas. This is environmental determinism. You will not find enough water in desert areas. Environmental determinism. Right? Why in hilly areas you have the house structures and the roofs are designed in such a manner so as to allow the precipitation or snowfall to slide. It does not get accumulated on the roof. Environmental determinism. This is environmental determinism. Now, on the opposite hand, so there was a time when there was no electricity and we were totally dependent on the solar light, but now we have electricity. Humans have invented it. That is what? Now humans are altering the environment. We are cutting down the forest and laying down the roads. We are cutting down the mountains and building dams. We are making our own rail lines. We are using this mic. We are using this technology to communicate with each other. That means humans now are altering the environment. So the counter philosophy of this environmental determinism is known as possibilism. Possibilism says, is the screen visible? Is the screen visible to all of you? Okay, just a minute. Yeah, because it is not visible to me, just give me a second. Yeah. Board is visible to everyone. Some white. Is it fine or still the issue exists? Okay. Yeah. So possibilism means that when man becomes an active agent, and here man includes women also. So there was a time when literature was written taking man as a common terminology for both man and women. Okay. So when man becomes an active agent, that means man now is altering the environment, and possibilism says that man or the human can do whatever he wants. This is possibilism, the exact counter of this philosophy. Now, how many of you agree with possibilism? Okay, Jatin, you were agreeing with determinism just 5 minutes back. Now you are agreeing with possibilism. वो तो मैंने एग्जाम्पल दे दिया. I am asking you that who are the believers of possibilism, that humans can do whatever they want. For example, जिधर चाह उधर रहा, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती. Some things like that. Yes. So that means one extreme is environmental determinism, where environment is determining the things. Second extreme is possibilism, where man is determining the thing. And we agree with our common sense that both of these extremes won't be true. Up to some extent, humans can do whatever they want. Then up to some extent, environment is also powerful. So that means, because when the evolution takes place, a lot of technology comes in, a lot of capital comes in. With the advancements of technologies, with the gradual evolution and development of the societies, obviously the man becomes more powerful. But then there has to be some limit. For example, when the humans breach those limits, we face disasters. When you will be continuously building dams on mountains, there might be earthquakes. When you will be continuously cutting the trees, there might be global warming. Continuous industrial emissions will lead to pollution, which will impact your own health, right? So that means the reality should be somewhat between environmental determinism and possibilism. And that middle path, the midway between these two extremes, is known as stop and go determinism. Environment will tell you that when you have to stop. Then environment will tell you that now you can go. So environment basically acts like a traffic signal. Okay? So when there is a red light, you have to stop. So for example, today we know that we are living in the era where global warming is taking place, where pollution is so high, biodiversity loss is taking place. That means environment is telling us to stop the activities, to halt the activities, or to change the activities, because the present way of growth, the present model of growth across the world is not sustainable. Hence, at all the international levels, we are talking about the sustainable development. So this is a stop and go determinism, also known as neo-determinism, right? Is it fine? From these three basic philosophies of geography, what do we understand? If I ask you a basic question, that what is geography? Can someone tell? Right? What is geography? Yes. Yes, Shivani. Humans and? Yes. Geography is not only the study of the earth. Geography is not only about studying the mountains, rivers, plateaus, valleys, landforms, etc. Geography is basically the study of man-environment relationship. So in geography, you have to study environment also. In geography, you have to study man also. This will be the basic concept which you will remember till you get selected. Whenever we will be talking about geography, we will be talking about both of these aspects. Done it? Okay. We have discussed the first phase will always be knowledge. We will be discussing that what sources have to be followed for geography. All those sources will be giving you a knowledge. When you will memorize that knowledge, when you will understand that knowledge, then only you will be ready for the exam. So it is not only about grasping the knowledge, you have to understand these things. Entire preparation is just based on 3 pillars. The first pillar for almost every subject is the NCERT's class 11th and 12th. For geography also we will follow class 11th and 12th NCERTs. That will make the foundation strong. And for geography, I can certainly say no other book is required. Just NCERTs and Atlas. And obviously these classes. That's done. Fine. Once you have read these NCERT basic books, then for some subjects, obviously you have to read about the standard textbooks. For example, when it comes to polity, there is Lakshmikant. When it goes to history, there is Bipin Chandra or Spectrum. When it goes to ancient medieval, there is Satish Chandra. When it goes to culture, there are other textbooks, right? So, but that has to be over and above the NCERT. NCERT will be your base. Once you have done NCERT, only then you will understand these books. Second, once you have done NCERT, only then you will understand current affairs. And third, once you have done NCERT, only then you will understand optional. So NCERT will always be your base. So this is a previous distribution, just a minute. Yeah. What sources do we have to follow for NCERT geography? As I have told you, class 11th and 12th NCERT books. If you want to read it in a hard copy, you can purchase it. If the people who can read it in soft copy, you can directly download it from ncert.nic.in. It's freely available. All the NCERT textbooks is available on the government website. Fine. So this, both of these books are class 11th NCERT. In 11th and 12th, in both the classes, there are two books. So that means geography total has 4 books. But the most important ones are class 11th NCERT, both the textbooks. So in class 11th NCERT, you will be having fundamentals of physical geography, 1 book. So this will be talking about the world geography. This will be talking about the conceptual part of physical geography. The second book is India Physical Environment. That means it will be talking about the physical geography of India. Okay? So in class 11th, NCERT has designed syllabus in that way that in class 11th, you only read about physical geography. Mountains, valleys, hills, etc. For the world as well as India. In class 12th, it comes human geography. But how that has to be approached, that's a later part. Why? Because in class 12th, again, there are two, Roja, I guess there is some problem with your internet. That's why you are facing this problem. Are other people also facing any problem related to the connectivity? Okay, fine. So that means in class 12th, it is a human geography. Human geography basically talks about resources, industries, infrastructure, etc. Right? But when it comes to these topics are very much current affairs oriented. And NCERT has old data. So because it does not get revised every year. So for human geography in general, we rely on the current affairs. For example, now lithium has been discovered in few parts of India. It might not there be in NCERT, because when NCERTs were written, when they were updated, so in those updated editions, lithium till then was not discovered. Fine. Done hai. Class 11th NCERTs and then Atlas. So now you have to be ready with Atlas whenever you are reading geography. Let's say you are reading geography from class 11th NCERT, and then the example come that, for example, let's say Himalayas. So there is an argument and then it writes, for example, Himalayas. So now I understand that all of you know that where Himalayas exist in India, but then you have to open up your Atlas and you have to locate Himalayas. And you have to observe Himalayas carefully, that in which states Himalayas exist. You have to mark those important areas, whatever you see in Atlas. When you are reading about world geography, let's say if example comes Rockies mountains, so you should be aware that where do we have Rockies mountains. So you have to find it in Atlas. You will be opening up North America's map, you will be locating those Rockies and you will be marking that within the Atlas itself. When we will be reading geography, when we'll start complete geography course, so then we'll see that how we have to use Atlas also, along with reading the textbooks. Is it fine, everyone? Done. If we see previous year questions distribution in prelims examination for geography, so these are some of the subtopics of geography. We'll come to this later. We'll come to this distribution also later. But here what we need to understand is, we all know that prelims paper has 100 questions in total. And if we see the weightage of questions, so you can see that in 2024 there were 16 questions, in 23 there were 10 questions, 22 there were 9 questions, 2020 there were 12 questions. In 2025, the latest examination, there are 15 questions. So we see that in last 2 to 3 years, the weightage of geography has grown in prelims. Now I don't know that whether next year there will be any question from geography or there will be 25 questions from geography. वो नहीं पता है, because I don't believe in deterministic tendencies. तो मैं वो पैटर्न बना के मैं वो प्रिडिक्ट नहीं कर सकता हूँ कि अगले साल क्या होने वाला है. That I don't know. What I know is that geography forms an important part of it. There will be few questions from geography, and if we understand geography, because it is a conceptual topic, if we understand geography, there is very high probability that you will be getting higher marks in this section. Same is true for polity also. If someone understands polity well, so because there will be questions from polity in prelims, and the probability of getting selected will increase. Okay? Fine. After reading the NCERTs, this is just me, so you don't have to see it. After reading the NCERTs, or say along with reading the NCERTs, obviously there are classes. So here you will be attending them. These classes are going to support your self-reading when you will read NCERTs. In these classes, we are going to cover all the NCERT basics, all the concepts, and the things which we feel are required over and above NCERT. Those will be done in class. Hence, your basic understanding will take place in class itself. After that, you just have to read NCERTs. लेकिन NCERTs पढ़नी है, ये नहीं कि क्लास में हो गया तो you don't have to read NCERTs. You have to read NCERTs. ठीक है? Once you have attended the classes, you have read NCERTs, you have revised those things, then obviously you have to practice those things. So there will be test series, so you have to attempt the prelims test, you have to attempt the mains test, because practice will form an important part. So वो भी करना पड़ेगा. And this is true for every subject. Let's try to decode the syllabus which is given by UPSC. In mains, there are 4 papers. In General Studies paper 1, GS1, you have geography. GS1 comprises of 3 parts: history, society, and geography of India and world. In geography section, these are the statements which are exactly written in the UPSC's notification, which basically tells you the syllabus. So it says, the first point says, Salient features of the world's physical geography. Khatam. Single line having almost everything in this. Sometimes I don't understand that why UPSC gives a right syllabus in such a manner. Polity का एक लाइन में लिख दो salient features of Indian Constitution खत्म. Now you just read the Constitution, read the articles, understand the articles, critically analyze the articles, talk about their evolution, right? Salient features of world physical geography, where we will be reading about the world physical features. We will be reading about Earth, axis, latitudes, longitudes, solar insolations, temperature, wind movement, ocean currents, ocean topography, primary winds, secondary winds, tertiary winds. All these physical things will come under the world's physical geography. Second part, it says distribution of key natural resources across the world and India. That how coal is distributed. What are the regions where you have higher coal? Which are the regions in which you have higher iron ore? Where are bauxite? Where is copper? Where is mica? Where is lime? Where is lithium? These are the natural minerals, natural resources. Now, natural resources are not restricted only to this, because natural resources also consist of forests, soil. What is a resource? Can anyone tell me? Try it. What is a resource? What do you understand by this word? True. Resources are some things which have economic value. For example, this pen. Is this a resource? Why is this a resource? Because it is being utilized. So we are using it on the board, and that is how it is being converted into economic value. Suppose this is a pen, but now it cannot write on the board. Is this a resource now? No, because now there is no economic value associated with it. It is a waste. This is the difference between a resource and a waste. If there is a person who is having a huge value, we call that person as a part of human resource. So if in an organization there are people who are of great value, who are contributing to the organization's growth, they are human resource. And if there are people in the organization who are not contributing anything valuable to the organization's growth, then they will be waste and they will be laid off. That is what happens. So resource is anything which is having a value. If there is a ladder and you are not using that ladder is a waste. If you are using that ladder and converting it into some value, that becomes a resource. So forests are resource because we derive a lot of things from forest. Soil is a resource because we derive a lot of economic value out of soil. Water is a resource. So when we talk about natural resources, we do not have to restrict only to the mineral resources. Is this clear? So in this geography, obviously we will be seeing the distribution of these resources across the world and India. Then is the factor responsible for the location of industries. Now this is also an important part. That which factors impact industrial location. Can you tell me in India, where do you have higher number of iron and steel plants? In which region or in which states? Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha. Why? Yes. So resource distribution directly impacts the industrial location. So this is the third part of the syllabus, whereby, yes Nandini, in West Bengal too there is steel plants, integrated steel plants, Durgapur. So but the point is, when we understand the resource distribution, that is how we will understand the industrial distribution, which is a part of geography syllabus. We need to understand what are different factors other than these resources. Is there availability of power over there? Is there availability of labor over there? Is there good availability of transportation over there? Because all these factors are going to impact industries. If I ask you, let's say you are an industrialist and you have to establish your industrial plant in some area, you have to select or identify the area. So if I ask you that, which factors will you think of? You will think first whether raw material is available there or not. Second, you will think transportation is available there or not. Third, you will think labor, and that too cheap, available or not. Labor it might happen that depending on the industry, you require skilled labor, semi-skilled labor, or unskilled labor. If you are going to establish IT industry, you require a skilled labor. If you are going to establish a pharmaceutical industry, you require a skilled labor. If you are going to establish textile industry, there semi-skilled labor can also work. Then you will be interested in knowing the capital. Is there capital in the region or not? Then you will be interested in knowing the government schemes, that whether government schemes are there or not, whether the government is incentivizing these things or not. Then you will be interested in knowing the market, whatever products you have made. Can you sell those products? Is there some buyer? Otherwise, all those products will become waste because no one will be buying it. So you need to understand the market also. समझ आ रहा है? So all these factors will impact the industrial distribution, and hence it is a part of geography. Next, important geophysical phenomena like earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic activities, cyclones, etc. And it further says the changes in critical geographical features. All these things will be a part of your static portion. This part is from the current affairs, because it is writing changes in the geographical features. Example, changes in the water resources of India. Now all of us know that water scarcity is growing in India. Every year, अब आ गया है वो time summers का, you will know कि बारिश भी पड़ रही है लेकिन water still is not available. Why? Because we are not managing our water resources. So that is being changed. The water resources are being changed for India. Hence, it will come here. Now, because it is being changed, hence it is a part of current affairs. Okay? Land degradation is taking place. That means soil resources are being changed. We will also read that how tropical cyclones are changing. So when we talk about India, this is the west coast of India, this is the east coast of India. Conventionally, it has been seen that cyclones were more formed in the Bay of Bengal region hitting the eastern coast of India. That means the people living in the eastern coast of India were vulnerable to the tropical cyclones. In last 5 to 6 years, we are witnessing that people living in the western coast of India are also becoming vulnerable to tropical cyclones. So this is a change. Hence, you have to study this change in this portion. Hence, this will be a part of current affairs. Why is it happening? That we will look when we will study tropical cyclone. Okay. Similarly, changes in ice caps, like glaciers are melting, so it is a change. Are you reading or have you listened anything about the Arctic melting? That Arctic is melting. Do we know where we have Arctic? What is Arctic region? Class 8th, not even 10th. Yes, Divyansh. True. Yeah. So there was a report also which published few years back, and the report was titled Greenland Converting into Concrete Land. Do we know where we have Greenland? We have two areas. One is Greenland, one is Iceland. Which one is having ice? And which is green? Iceland. So they are opposites. Why? ये उल्टे नाम क्यों रखे गए हैं? Anyone? Why icy areas are known as Greenland and green areas are known as Iceland. Yes, Divyansh. It has nothing to do with physical geography. Yes, Shiva. Perception of? Yes. So why these man-made misnomers? Ah. What? So all these Utpatang names are being given by the colonizers. We'll see that why prime meridian is known as prime meridian. So when there was colonization which was going on and the age of exploration was there, when the Europeans went across the maritime areas and they tried to explore the other areas, they came across the area which was having a lot of ice, and they, because they were relatively advanced, so they knew that it will be having a lot of resources. So in order to protect those areas for future exploration, they gave the opposite names to these areas, so that people in search of green pastures will be going to the icy areas, right? Because they wanted to protect those areas. Okay? And vice versa. So it was all colonial origin. Okay, coming back to this, and then flora and fauna, changes in the forest, changes in the biodiversity and their impact. So basically this is the syllabus of geography which is given to you by UPSC. We have to prepare geography within these boundaries only. Anything beyond this will not be our part. Issue is there is nothing beyond this in geography. Everything is within these lines only. So sabhi padhna hai fir. Fine. Similarly, when it comes to mains paper, that is GS1, again, we are not discussing this thing as of now. We'll discuss it later when we will be having some basics of these topics. But in mains paper in GS1, here again we can see that around 7 to 8 on an average questions do come from geography when we talk about general studies paper 1. Every paper has 20 questions. Out of 20 questions, there are 7 to 8 questions on average from geography only. Rest is divided between history and society. Further, all this knowledge of geography will be helpful to you in your general studies paper 3. When you will be seeing the syllabus of GS paper 3, there you will have agriculture. So geography, infrastructure, geography, energy, geography. In GS paper 3, you have environment, geography. In GS paper 3, you have disaster management. So you will be reading about earthquakes in geography and the management part of it in GS3. That means geography has a huge weightage when it comes to GS paper 1 as well as GS paper 3. Fine. So let us start with one basic topic. सबसे simple topic. Earth's latitudes, longitudes, rotation, revolution related basic concepts. Right? Can anyone tell me that what is the difference between latitudes and longitudes? True. So let's say if I draw the earth like this. So when we talk about equator, so equator is, so sorry, my earth is slightly tilted in the opposite direction. Yeah. So equator is something like this. So we have seen that there are a lot of lines like this on the earth. All these horizontal lines are basically known as parallels. And these parallels are basically the longitudes. Sorry, latitudes. Equator is basically a 0-degree latitude. Why do we say equator is a 0-degree latitude? Because when we divide the earth into two parts, this equator is basically an imaginary line which divides the earth's surface into two equal parts. So that means this is what? This is an imaginary line which divides earth into two equal parts. This part is known as the northern hemisphere and the southern part is known as the southern hemisphere. Fine. If we are saying that equator is a 0-degree latitude, hence the pole, this point, will be a 90-degree latitude. This point will be a north pole. Similarly, in the southern hemisphere, here again we have a south pole, again 90-degree latitude. Now, can you tell me how many latitudes are there on Earth in numbers? 1? Yes, 181. Why? 1 degree, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till 90. So 90 in northern hemisphere. Similarly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 till 90, 90 in southern hemisphere, plus this 0-degree equator. So it is 90 plus 90 plus 1. Hence 181 total number of latitudes on Earth. Okay, fine. And because latitudes are divided into northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, that is why whenever you will be reading about latitudes, you will always see that whether the N would be written towards the end or S would be written. That is either north or south. For example, if I am writing this latitude as 23.5 degree latitude, so I have to mention that it is 23.5 degree north latitude because it is in northern hemisphere. Is this fine? So I have to mention it. If here I am writing it, then it will be 23.5 degree south latitude. Now these 23.5 degree north and 23.5 degree south are known as Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn respectively. Fine. Beyond this, this important latitude is known as Arctic Circle. This Arctic Circle is basically 56.5 degree. Similarly, in the southern hemisphere, you have Antarctic Circle. So this Antarctic Circle again will be 56.5 degree south. This will be north. Then towards the extreme, here 90 degree north pole, 90 degree south pole. Is this fine? Now if I ask you a question, out of all these latitudes, what do you think which latitude will be the longest one in terms of distance? All these are imaginary lines. So which of these imaginary lines will be having a highest distance, the longest ones? Equator. Why? Why? Because if we consider Earth as a sphere, like a ball, so obviously the center part is the most bulged out part. So if you are moving, if this is a ball, so let's say I'm not having a ball over here. So let's say this is a ball. So if this is a center portion, so this is the largest area which you have to cover, and on the top it is just a single point. So the polar areas, this one will be, in reality it will be a 0 kilometer distance, a zero distance in any unit, because this will be just a single point, and equator will be the longest line. As you are moving from equator towards the pole, the lines are getting reduced. Fine. Today we are just understanding the basic things. All these things will be repeated again because this have to be repeated again. अभी हम सिर्फ समझेंगे, so that towards the end, because we have to solve few questions. Is this fine? Is this okay to everyone? Okay. If I now ask you that between these latitudes, the distance, this distance, will remain same or will it change? Yes, Devyansh. Why? Okay. So now let me draw another earth. And here let me draw longitudes. So longitudes would be like this. These will be the longitudes. So I am asking a question. The distance between these imaginary lines, whether longitude or latitudes, in which you are seeing the change of distance. For example, here, think about longitudes. In longitude, the distance between the imaginary lines at this point is this, at this point it is this, at this point it is, at this point it is 0. But in latitudes, this is the distance, this is the distance, this is the distance, this is the distance, this is the distance. So in longitudes, there is a change of distance between the lines. In latitudes, it remains same. Fine. The distance between the two latitudes is somewhat around 111 kilometers. That we'll discuss later. Is this clear to everyone? The basic latitudes and longitudes. We'll discuss this in more detail when we'll starting our geography lectures in detail. Okay. Second important topic in this is the tilted axis of the earth. Now this tilted axis has a very huge and important role in earth. If I draw, let's say, earth like this and assume that the axis is not tilted, so this would have been a scenario. In reality, this is the scenario, but let us assume that this was the vertical axis of the earth. Okay? How do we define axis? Axis is basically an imaginary line which passes through the center of mass. Fine. So this is an imaginary line passing through the center of mass of an object. This is axis. And this is a purely vertical axis. When we see the earth, earth is having a tilted axis like this. So this angle is known as the tilt of axis. So when we say the rotational axis of the earth, this will be the rotational axis of the earth. Now what do we mean by rotational axis? The axis along which the earth is rotating. This so we know na, that earth rotates around its own axis. This is the axis along which earth rotates. So that means earth does not rotate in this direction like this. Earth rotates in this direction because the axis is tilted. तो अर्थ ऐसे नहीं घूमेगा, अर्थ ऐसे घूमेगी. Is this fine to everyone? And this angle is known as obliquity. What is the angle of this tilt? The angle of this tilt is 23.4 or 5 degree. And this tilt is not constant, it changes. So the normal range of this tilt is somewhat around 22 to 23.5 degree. So this is the range, or sometimes 24 degree, but it will not change. You will not see this change in your life. We all will be dead when this tilt will change. And we never existed when this tilt was not this. Because this change of tilted axis takes place in millions of years in geological time scale. And whenever there is a change of this angle, everything will change. So when we read about Ice Age, there was a time when everything was frozen. In that Ice Age, the tilt angle was not 23.5 degree, it was something else. But it was many years back. Okay? Clear hai ye? This axis is known as orbital plane. Orbital plane means we also now know that Earth revolves around the Sun. So Earth has two motions. One, Earth rotates on its axis. Second, Earth revolves around the Sun. So Earth revolves around the Sun in its orbit, and that axis is known as orbital plane. So if we are saying that here the angle is, let's say, 23.5 degree, what will be this angle? $66.5. Okay. Now when the question will be asked to you, you have to be very careful that what is the question asking. Is the question taking a reference of this line or this line? For example, Earth makes 66.5 degree angle with orbital plane. This is true. Earth makes 23.5 degree angle with the vertical axis. This is true. Now if I reverse the statements, Earth makes 23.5 degree angle with orbital plane, it becomes false. So when you are reading a statement, क्योंकि 2 घंटे में पेपर खत्म करना है, so you don't work like this. Earth makes 23.5 degree angle, true. What was the reference? So read that complete line first, then attempt it. Clear hai ye? Here we have talked about rotation and we have talked about revolution. If we understand both of these things, so suppose my head is a sun and this is the Earth. So the movement of Earth is, one, because it is rotating on its axis, and it is also revolving around my head. So it is something like this. So there are two movements, right? Rotation and revolution. Because of rotation, we experience what? What is the most important impact of rotation? See, no, day. Yes, it is day and night. And revolution is a change of season. Now we will understand why revolution becomes important. So let us assume that this is a sun. In geography, you will get to draw a lot of diagrams. So those who are interested in drawing, geography will become their favorite subject. Those who are not interested in drawing, even then you have to draw a lot of things in geography because marks tab milenge, right? So I am making 4 positions of the Earth around this sun. One is this, one is, let's say, this, one is this, and let us assume that in the month of June, here we are having Earth. Then July, August, September, 3 months. October, November, December. January, February, March. So we'll study the positions of the Earth in these 4 months. We know that Earth axis is tilted, so that means the axis is like this, like this. So yeah. Then, if this is a tilted axis, so can I draw North Pole over here and South Pole over here? Is this fine? क्योंकि अब यहाँ तो नॉर्थ पोल नहीं होगा बिकॉज अर्थ एक्सिस ही टिल्ट हुआ होगा तो सब कुछ ही टेढ़ा होगा. Everything will be tilted. In reality, you will not have the North Pole exactly at this point. This would have been a scenario if the axis would have been perfectly straight. But now the axis is like this, so here you are having North Pole. Okay? I am dividing the Earth into two hemispheres, North and South hemisphere. Okay. Now tell me that during the month of June, if the position of Earth is in this direction, then North Pole versus South Pole, which one is closer to Sun? North. So that means the solar insolations will be hitting with more intensity in this north region. So that means in northern hemisphere you will experience summers. Hence in the month of June because we live in northern hemisphere, so we experience summers. At the same time in the southern hemisphere you would be experiencing winters. Is this fine? Now come to this December. So again, if I draw the North Pole and South Pole, so here you are having South Pole, here you are having North Pole, and now because the sun rays are more intense on the southern hemisphere area, hence during the month of December, here you will have summers and here you will have winters. समझ में आया? Now talk about these two positions. In both of these positions, now you have to imagine it in 3D, ऐसे 2D में नहीं, because in 2D you can say that South Pole is closer to someone, this thing, है ना? If I draw North Pole here and South Pole here, so you can understand that South Pole is close to Sun. But imagine it in 3D. So Earth is not here. If Sun is here, Earth is not here. Earth is here at the back. If you understand this thing, it concludes what? It concludes that at this position, both of these points are relatively at equal distance from the Sun, and hence both of these points will experience equal sunlight. Same is true for this thing also. That is why in the month of March and in the month of September, we relatively have moderate type of climate. ना बहुत गर्मी होती है, ना बहुत सर्दी होती है. Because the same insolation is equally divided into both the parts of the earth, both the hemisphere. So यहाँ पर भी equal. Is this clear? Seasons are done. Now along with this, we should also analyze the times of day and night. In summers we have longer days, that is true. है ना? Why we are having in summers we are having longer days? In the month of June we have summers, higher light is present in the northern hemisphere, so that means day will be longer. So that means here days would be longer. In the month of June, in the northern hemisphere, longer days will be there. In the month of June, in the southern hemisphere, longer nights would be there. True? Fine. The longest day in the northern hemisphere is observed on 21st June. So that means the longest night in southern hemisphere will be observed on 21st June. अब ये सारा permutation combination है. You don't have to revise all these facts. You just have to understand one fact. इतना याद कर लो कि for example in June, because we live in June, so take this as a reference always. It will be easier for you because we'll observe all these things. So in the month of June, we live in northern hemisphere, hence summers. In the month of June, in southern hemisphere, exactly opposite. In the month of June, we have summers, hence we have longer days. Exactly opposite in southern hemisphere. Exactly opposite when the season, the month will change. This will be December. Fine. These longest days or longest nights are known as the position of solstice. When we say, or whenever you read that summer solstice is being observed in northern hemisphere, what do you mean by this line? That northern hemisphere is experiencing summer solstice. That means northern hemisphere is experiencing summer and northern hemisphere is experiencing longest day because summer solstice is there. That means it is a month of June. Any question, any doubt till now? Anyone? Should I repeat this again? ये एक्सप्रेशन समझ नहीं आया, ये है कि ये है? Okay, I am saying that we live in northern hemisphere. We know that in June we have summers. That means we are closer to sun. That means in June if we have summers, so longer days are also in June. In December we have longer nights. In June we have longer days. That the length of days, the highest, the longest day is known as solstice. This is a terminology for this. The longest day is solstice. So अगर मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ that the northern hemisphere is experiencing summer solstice, what does this statement mean? It means that northern hemisphere is experiencing one summer. If northern hemisphere is experiencing summer, can you tell me in which month northern hemisphere experiences summer? Jatin? Yes, so that means it is giving me that we are in the month of June. Second word is solstice. Solstice is what? It is the longest day. So if I am saying that northern hemisphere is experiencing summer solstice, that means this is giving you what date? 21st June. Yeah, so it is giving you a date also. So this statement means these two things. Now I can just have a variations of this. For example, if I write northern hemisphere is experiencing summer solstice. Now is this statement also telling you that southern hemisphere is experiencing winter solstice? Is this true? क्योंकि अगर नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फीयर में समर्स हैं तो सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर में विंटर्स हैं. Exactly opposite. So this statement does not only tell you about the northern hemisphere, it also tells you about the southern hemisphere. What are the conditions? Is this clear to everyone? Any doubt in this? Okay, exactly opposite in this scenario. Now we are in December. This is the northern hemisphere. In northern hemisphere, in December, what do we observe? Winters or summers? We have winter. Correct. So that means In December, let's say 21st, these dates sometimes 21 to 23. In every month, we have similar dates, 21 to 23. 21st June, 23rd September, 22nd June, 23rd March. These are the dates. Fine. So 21 से 23 के बीच में ही है सब कुछ. So now if I am saying that in December in northern hemisphere you have winter solstice, that means what? In December in southern hemisphere you will be having summer solstice. That means what? In December in southern hemisphere now there will be the longest day because summer यहाँ पे है. And in northern hemisphere, because there are winters, there will be longest night. इसीलिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ, just try to understand one information over here. In June, northern hemisphere, summer's longest day. उसके बाद you just have to come with the opposite arguments depending on the month and season and all those things. Is this fine? Now, what is the common mistake which generally people do? And a lot of textbooks have also committed this mistake. So let's say you are reading some textbook and it says summer solstice comes in the month of June, to be precisely 21st June. Is this statement true or false? Why? Yes. So point is again what? Summer solstice comes in the month of June for northern hemisphere. So if you are not giving me a reference, this statement, I cannot say that whether this is true or false. This statement is vague. So to make this statement precise, if you have to ask me a question, tell me which hemisphere are you talking about? Clear hai ye? Everyone? In general, what happens? We have a tendency to learn everything from our perspective. So because we experience summer in June, hence we tend to mark this statement correct. कि हाँ हमारे पास तो summer solstice जून में आता है. This should not be done. Fine. Yes, Shivani. Yes. True. True. For example, if you have asked this question, now let me frame another statement. Longest solstice will be observed where on the earth? Equator, tropics, polars, where? Longest solstice. Yes, Divyansh. Over equator? Why? Hmm. Perfect. Yes, Shivani. नहीं नहीं, यहाँ पे वो ट्रिक नहीं है. Either in northern hemisphere or in southern hemisphere, that question is open to everything. You just tell me that in which, at what areas or at what latitudes. Yes, Shiva. Yes. Longer days or longer nights? Both. True. True. 24 hours? How 24 hours will be daylight? Today, just see the daylight at 9 p.m. Have we heard, have we read that in the polar areas, we observe 6 months of continuous day and 6 months of continuous nights? So that means the longest solstice or the solstice in their extreme form are observed in the polar areas. beyond the Arctic Circle. For example, in the month of June, beyond the Arctic Circle, that is in Antarctic region, there will be 6 months day, continuous sunlight, hence extreme form of solstice. On the other hand, in the month of December, because now sun is in the southern hemisphere, Antarctic Circle and beyond that, this complete region will be having the longest day. Why? Because days are continuing for 6 months. Is this understood, everyone? Yes, Shiva. Solstice denotes you the longer days. Yes, so when, let's say, you are moving from equator towards poles, and we are in the month of, let's say, June. So when you are moving from equator towards the pole, the duration of the day is increasing. The daylight time is increasing. Right? During the month of December, when the sun is in southern hemisphere, then the daylight, the timings are increasing when you are moving from equator towards the southern pole. अब ये होता क्यों है? Let us try to understand this. That what is the scientific explanation for this? The scientific explanation is there is a concept known as subsolar point. What is this subsolar point? Subsolar point is defined as that point on the Earth's surface where you experience vertical sun rays. Okay? Vertical sun rays. So let's say if I draw a diagram, this is a sun, and let's say this is the Earth, this is equator. So generally what we experience is, in general we say that sun always shines vertically on the equator almost throughout the year. Why? It is like this. When we say, just itna technical nahi hai, do we remember what was tangent in mathematics class 10th 9th, hai na? How do we measure this? So if the sun ray is striking this equator and we draw a tangent from this Earth's surface, now this comes out to be 90 degree. And we can understand that if sun is vertically shining over any area, that means these sun rays are most intense. Okay? Because of the tilted axis of the Earth, what has been observed is, in different seasons, because of the tilted axis and the revolution of the Earth, it has been observed that the subsolar point can move only between the tropics. That means if here we are having Tropic of Cancer, and here we are having Tropic of Capricorn, this is the zone of subsolar point. That means sun can only shine vertically in this region. Vertical shining, vertical rays cannot be observed beyond these tropics. Therefore, tropical areas are the warmest areas, because sunshine ही इसके अंदर करता है vertical. As you will be moving up towards the north or south pole, the sun rays will be purely slanting like this. That means here they are making almost a 0 degree angle. They are just touching the Earth's surface. Hence we say that in the polar areas, the slant sun rays increase. Clear hai ye? That is why in polar areas there will be less heating, and hence there will be more ice. Clear? So now here when we were saying that Earth is in June, it means what? It means that the subsolar point is on Tropic of Cancer. On the other hand, if we are in December, here the subsolar point is on Tropic of Capricorn. And hence, because we are saying that here, let's say subsolar point is on Tropic of Cancer. Now, because sun is vertically shining over Tropic of Cancer, that means it will be having a longer day. Sun जहां पे shine कर रहा है वहीं पे longer day होगा, right? Hence, we have the longer days in northern hemisphere in the month of June because subsolar point is shining on Tropic of Cancer. So general way of writing it is that sun moves between tropics only. In books you will read that sun moves within the tropics. But from the basic science we know that sun never moves. It is the earth which moves. Huh? Yes. Timing. Whether the day is for 8 hours, 12 hours, more than 12 hours. Where? Yes. No, longer, not longest. That's why I said longest day will be observed on pole. Solstice in extreme forms are at pole. So when we compare, when we say that Tropic of Cancer will be having a longer day, this is in comparison to the latitudes between equator and Tropic of Cancer. As you are moving up, obviously the day lengths are increasing. Fine, everyone. सब समझ में आ गया? Yes, Shivani. Which question? Come again. इसका आंसर इक्वेटर था. कौन सा क्वेश्चन था? कैन एनीवन हेल्प मी जिसका आंसर इक्वेटर था? Just a minute. Nandini was saying something. Yes, Nandini. Okay, no. We have to be very careful with the words. Equator receive most intense sunlight, not the maximum sunlight. Maximum sunlight is observed slightly north of equator. We'll come to it in later lectures. We are just talking about the angle of inclination of sunlight here, right? So when we say that on equator the sun always shines vertically, that does not mean exact vertically, that is exact 90 degree, because on 21st June the sun is vertically over Tropic of Cancer, not the equator. We only mean that sun will be there on equator almost every month, in almost every month of the year, which is not true with the other areas in both the hemisphere. And hence in equator there will be persistent presence of sunlight, and hence in the equator you will be having relatively high humidity, higher temperatures. Okay, is clear everyone till now? Sab kuch? Okay, just two positions are remaining, this and this. When if we have understood both of these positions, and we have understood that here we have equal days and equal nights, that is why these two positions are known as equinoxes. In these two dates, September and March, 21st September, 23rd March, in these two dates, the sun is exactly vertical on equator. Okay? The sun is exactly perpendicular to the equator, which means what? That now in both the hemisphere, days and nights will be equal at similar latitude. So 10 degree north, 10 degree south, equal day and night. 20 degree north, 20 degree south, equal day and night. 40 degree north, 40 degree south, equal day and night. So on the similar latitudes in both the hemisphere, there will be same day and night. Fine. Everyone? Yes, Nandana? In the March and September, the subsolar point is located on equator, exactly midway between Cancer and Capricorn. That is why sun is shining vertically over equator. Yeah, so this position, this diagram basically is reflecting the March and September position. This one. Hence, they are equinox, equal days and nights. Solstice positions, extreme. Either days would be longer or nights would be longer. Equinox, equal days and nights. Fine, everyone. So this entire thing is explained in this conventional diagram which we have just seen. Okay, should we move ahead? Can you attempt this one? Just try to think about this question. Take 40 seconds of time. I'll come to you, Shiva and Divyansh. Take 40 seconds of time and try to bring some points for this. Yes. Yes, help me. Give me some points. Okay. Seasonal changes. Huh? Sub or huh? What? No, no, no. So can I call it differential heating of the earth? And yes, Shivani. वही है differential heating of the earth. Yes, Jadav, Mahesh. Poonam. different latitudes. That is again the outcome of differential heating of the earth. Yes, Prakriti. Huh. So when we are focusing on these points, don't you think that these points are somewhat related to each other only? So for example, seasonal changes taken. Then come subsolar points. So this variation in subsolar point is basically the reason for differential heating of the earth. Variation in this subsolar point is basically the reason for the differences in the duration of day and nights. It is just one point. वो ऐसे वाली बात है, like this or like this. तो कान कहीं से ही पकड़ो, सेम ही बात है. Yes, Shiva. What would be the significance? Come again. How does it impact the global warming? The melting, so recent melting of polar ice caps, has it anything to do with the tilted axis? So how do we link these two things? Shiva, continue. True. Formation of ice caps, na? You are saying. The formation of ice caps again is an outcome of this only, differential heating of the earth. So if there, let us try to understand this. If there would not have been an axial tilt, but there would have been a revolutionary motion. Okay, so that means now this is the earth, this is the axis, here we have sun, this is the axis, this is the axis, and this is the axis. True? In both the hemispheres, same seasons would be there. Okay, so let's say if I draw the equator like this, here we are having North Pole, here we are having South Pole. Okay? So can we understand that the sun rays still would be maximum in this region? Because as you will be moving up the pole, the sun rays would be slanting. So that means here you will be having the least amount of sun rays. Here again you will be having a least amount of sun rays. And here you will be having a maximum amount of sun rays. In this scenario, still there is a differential heating of the Earth's surface. True? But there are no changes in the seasons. There is a permanent climate, that this region will always be warm and the upper areas, polar areas, will always be cold. The same thing will happen here, the same thing will happen here also. This area again, this is North Pole, this is South Pole. So in this scenario, there are no changes in seasons. There are changes in the duration of day and night times on different latitudes. That is true. For example, on this latitude versus this latitude, there will be alteration in the timings of duration of days and night. That is true. So that means what? When we talk about tilted axis, when we talk about rotation, when we talk about revolution, each of these things give us a specific outcome. In general, we tend to read it together. But when you will move towards prelims, so then we will be discussing all these things. So there I tend to come up with the questions in the class. Let's say if there is tilting but no revolution, then what would happen? Then what would be the outcome? If there is rotation but no revolution, then what would be the outcome? If there is tilting and rotation without revolution, then what would be the outcome? So these are just the permutation and combinations, which if we understand this, we can think of. Sorry? Yes, so अभी इसमें तो हम लेंगे ना. A question is not asking you that what is the significance of tilting axis without revolution. It is not asking you a question that what is the significance of, it is not restricted. So we never have to understand the question in a restricted sense. If there is axial tilt, then what outcomes is it giving us? That might be in combination to rotation and revolution. No problem in this. Yes, Divyansh? Hmm. Hmm. ठीक है, मतलब वो भी इससे रिलेटेड ही है. जस्ट लेट्स हैव अ लुक. अब what has happened with all of us is that because we have just read about these points you already have told to me ना, यही बताया सबने. So because we have just read these points, hence we have restricted our imagination to only these points. If we are saying that there is a differential heating of the earth, then why are not we thinking about the outcomes of that process also? If A is leading to B and B is leading to C, hence we can say that A has led to C also in some way. If there is differential heating of the earth, that means there are differences in the climate, there are differences in the weather, there will be movement of wind, there will be heat redistribution, there will be impacts on ecosystem, there will be differences in vegetation, there will be differences in biodiversity. And also we just had a passing by reference that tilted axis depends on the basis of the degree at which it is tilted. There will be long-term changes in geological time scale, ice age, etc. Right? Yes, Poonam, you are having some doubt? Okay. So my point is why I took this question, just to tell you, and it will happen, but you need to develop this ability that when the question is asked, obviously you need to bring the points from the immediate discussion, but also try to think its other consequences which might be very commonsensical, but we haven't discussed them in the class. This is what is known as brainstorming. And this we will continue to do in every class for every mains type of question, which is a subjective. Is it fine to everyone? ठीक है, done सबको? Now the things we have already discussed, it is just the formal representation of all those things. We have discussed that when we talk about the solar energy in equator versus polar areas, we know that as you move towards the pole, the solar rays tend to have a higher inclination because they tend to be more slanting. And hence, when we talk about the net amount of energy, let's say, when we talk about the amount of energy, that is intensity of the solar radiations, we have discussed that on equator, it will be highest. On pole, it will be lowest. Intensity means more unit of sun rays in a small area, right? When we see this particular diagram, so here we are discussing the difference, the northern hemisphere summer and the northern hemisphere winter. This also we have discussed. If this is the case, northern pole is towards sun, hence summer in northern pole, northern hemisphere. If this is the case, south pole is more towards sun, and hence summers in southern hemisphere. Is this fine? Now, what is this diagram? Let us understand this also. Just, yeah. If I represent latitudes on a graph, so let's say this is x-axis, this is y-axis. On the y-axis, let us assume that we have solar insolation. So let's say 200 units watt, 300, just a hypothetical example, 400 watts per meter square. We are talking about intensity of sun rays, 500 watts per meter square. Forget about the units. What we want to learn is, on the x-axis we have latitudes. In center we have 0 degree latitude, that is equator. Then here 10 degree, 20 degree, 30 degree, up to 90 degree. Similarly, in the other hemisphere, we have 10 degree, 20, 30, up to 90. Now, when we talk about the incoming solar radiations, the radiations which are coming towards the earth from the sun, we understand that in the equatorial or the tropical areas, those will be highest. So that means, and in the polar areas, that those will be lowest. So can I draw a curve like this? That in the tropical areas, the highest amount of radiations are coming to the Earth's surface. In the polar areas, these radiations have gone down. Fine. Here, we call this as incoming solar radiation. Fine. When these sun rays are striking the earth, उसके बाद हो क्या रहा है? If light, how can you see me? Because light is striking me, it is going back. That is how we see the objects. Light strikes the object and then it is reflected back to our eyes. That is how we see the object. That is why during night, when there is no light, we do not see the objects. So that means the solar insolations, when they are striking the Earth's surface, they will also be going back, which is known as reflected solar radiations. What do you think? Which is a better reflector? Let's say land versus ice. Yes, Shivani? Ice. So ice is always a better reflector. Whatever sun rays are falling on the ice, they will reflect all the sunlight. If the sunlights are falling on trees, they might absorb something. If the sunlight is falling on buildings, on land, on us, we tend to absorb some portion of sunlight. Okay? So that means the polar areas, the icy areas, will be reflecting higher amount of radiations. Tropical areas are receiving higher amount of radiations. Polar areas are reflecting back higher amount of radiations. Is this true? So if I have to draw a line, so can I draw something like this? Okay? Fine. If we closely see this diagram, can I say that this area is a heat surplus areas? Because more amount of radiation has come and less amount of radiation has gone back from this region. On the contrary, here less amount of radiation has come, but more amount of radiation has gone back. So that means this become heat deficit areas. True, everyone? Therefore, we say that tropical regions are warm regions. Why? Because they are heat surplus areas. Polar regions are cold regions. Why? Because they are heat deficit areas. All the incoming solar radiations mostly is observed in tropical areas. So they are like this. Then they tend to move towards the pole. And then from these polar areas, they tend to get back. If this would not have happened, तो क्या होता? If this heat redistribution would not have taken place, then the outcome would have been all the incoming radiations which are coming to tropical areas would be accumulated over there, and tropical areas would be like the hot boiling water areas. Then there won't be any life which would be possible in those areas. So these areas would be the boiling regions, would have been a boiling regions, and these areas would have been a frigid zones. Nowhere the life would have been possible. Because this heat redistribution is taking place, that is the reason that why on Earth we are having life. Now, how this heat redistributes? Through two means. One is wind, second is water. Is this fine? And now this is very important. For example, if you have to think about renewable energy generation, solar energy generation. So can you develop a solar energy plant in the polar areas? Because it's a heat deficit area. So you will develop solar energy plants in tropical countries. Are we aware about ISA, International Solar Alliance? Have we read about it somewhere, anywhere? International Solar Alliance is an initiative by Government of India along with other countries whereby we are trying to tap the potential of solar energy from all the countries to develop a renewable energy. In that alliance, you will see most of the countries, majority of the countries are tropical countries, because tropical countries के पास ही heat है. Fine. So when, let's say, you are thinking about differential heating of the Earth's surface, can you think of this diagram which can explain that thing? Differential heating of the Earth's surface. Hence, this diagram should be a part of your answer also, if you are writing on differential heating of the Earth's surface. That is how, when we will be going into the mains answer, that is how we have to think. Is this fine, everyone? Yes, Divyansh? Heat movement actually will, heat movement जब भी होता है, heat movement will always take place from equator towards the polar areas. ठीक है? Why does this happen? Because again, वही है, in next classes we will be discussing it. Why it happens? In equatorial areas you have the higher insolation. That means the winds are getting warmed up. We know warm winds are lighter winds. So if warm winds are lighter winds, so those winds try to go up. On the contrary, in the polar areas, we have cold winds. Cold winds are denser winds. So denser winds tend to sink. If they are sinking, they form high pressure here. If they are rising, they form low pressure here. We know wind moves from high pressure to low pressure. So the wind direction on the surface of the Earth would be like this, from pole towards equator. Wind movement in the upper atmosphere will be like this. So this forms a cell. These are known as meridional cells. So there are three types of cells. We will talk about it when we'll move into the core climatology. As of now, we just have to deal with just the simple basic things: latitudes, longitudes, tilted axis, rotation and revolution, which is done. Everyone. Okay. Okay. These are the previous year questions asked in prelims. Is it visible to everyone? Okay. My color selection is very bad. So, okay. Now I don't know on what you have said yes, sir. My color selection is bad or is it visible to you? Okay. Okay. Just attempt these questions from the same topic. In 2013, in 2020, in 2022, just attempt few of these questions. There are other questions also, but first attempt. Done? Easy questions. So question 1. Variations in the length of daytime and nighttime from season to seasons are due to. Yes. How many of you have marked option B? No one? My God, intelligent batch. How many of you have marked option D? How many of you have left the question so as not to attract any negative marking? A, C. Okay. These are the answers. Up, for example, in this question, when we read this question and as soon as we read this option B, that is the Earth's revolution around the sun in an elliptical manner. So sometimes it happens that we tend to select this option because this is not incorrect. But as soon as you read option D and you now compare B and D, because revolution is common, but tilt also has to be there. We just discussed this in the context of the question asked by Shiva, that if there is no tilt and revolution is there, then there will be equal days and nights on same latitude. There will not be variation in different seasons. Hence, tilting has to be there along with the revolution. So that is why whenever you read questions, first always read the 4 options. Because UPSC explicitly tells you that whenever you are confused between 2 options, you have to select the most appropriate one. So this is the most appropriate one. Fine. This question, on 21st June, the sun does not set below the horizon at Arctic Circle. Was this correct? Everyone? Last northern hemisphere, the longest day of the year normally occurs in second half, 21st June, second half. Fine. तो किस किस के तीनों क्वेश्चंस सही हैं? How many of you have, what have you scored out of 6? Everyone? 4? Okay. Okay. So you have to calculate the negative also. If one was incorrect, so 2 by 3 of negative also. Okay, fine. 2024 question from the same topic. Yes, Divyansh. B for ball. Okay. Mahesh is saying D. D for dog. What about हाँ दो ही ऑप्शन ही है नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फेयर में, तो उसी में कंफ्यूजन होगा. Harsha is saying 2. Okay. So when we were discussing, let's say if this is the northern hemisphere, this is equator, this is tropic of Cancer, and we know that sun is shining over tropic of Cancer, we said that here you will be having a longer day compared to equator, but then we also discussed that here there will be 6 months day, 24 hours of daylight. So here you are having more than 12 hours of daylight. Here you are having less than 12 hours of daylight. But in the pole, you are having 24 hours of daylight. Right? So that means now the answer would be D, 2 and 4. Fine? Yes. Jaldi jaldi. True and false. Write it in your notebook and then. So let's discuss simultaneously. The equator is the longest line of the latitude on the earth. True or false? True. All lines of longitudes are of equal length. True or false? Longitudes and latitudes. So longitudes equal length, latitudes different length. Longitudes different distance, latitudes same distance. Okay? The Tropic of Cancer lies at 23.5 degrees south latitude. It is north. The earth rotates from west to east. ये तो पढ़ा नहीं हमने आज. Any doubt in this? ठीक है, क्लास 6 में पढ़ा था. Okay, so there are 180 latitudes in total on earth. The prime meridian passes through Greenwich, UK. What is prime meridian? So for example, when in the context of latitudes, we discussed that all the latitudes are taken from the reference of equator, which is a 0-degree latitude. So British people said that everything related to time will be measured through a line which is going through our country. That will be the prime meridian. And hence how it was named कि जो हमारे यहाँ से जा रहा है उसको बना लो, because that was a time when in terms of scientific literature the dominance was with the European powers. So everything what we read today is written in the context of their understanding. That is why we tend to say this a lot of times, that when we are developing our own scientific models, climatological models, etc., we should have our own indigenous research and development. The cyclones which are coming in the tropical area in which we are living, those cyclones are entirely different from the cyclones in the temperate areas or the European areas. So how can we apply the same model to understand the tropical cyclone which are developed by Europeans. We need to have our own models. That is true, but that needs money and intent. हम दोनों ही lack करते हैं. Our budget expenditure in research and development is so less compared to the countries, other like countries like European countries, even in Asian countries like China. So we are very bad in these things. As skilled workforce, how are we going to promote research and development when the people who are doing their masters, they are coming for UPSC civil services preparation? उनको तो research में तो कोई गया नहीं. And how can we expect people in India to research when the stipend which is given by the government, the support which is given by the government is not up to the mark? How can we invest in research and development when we know that what is the quality of our scientific journals? The basic things are our higher education institutions, are they independent? So can any of our higher education institutions stand against our Prime Minister? But in US we see this. The university has taken a stand against the president of US. So these are the things. That is why it happens. We need to promote R&D culture. तब तो ये सारी बातें हो पाएंगी ना. But we cannot promote it as of now. Again, the Earth's revolution causes day and night. Rotation causes it. Yeah. Next. When it is summer in northern hemisphere, it is winter in southern hemisphere. International dateline coincides with the prime meridian. Sure. So when you move from east to west, अच्छा मैं एक question पूछता हूँ इसी से related. I write a statement, just tell me it's true or false. There are two statements. So latitudes are the horizontal lines, like these are the directions. Longitudes are the vertical lines, like this. Which of these two statements are true? First is true. Any other answer? Anyone? These are the latitudes running from west to east. So they are telling us about west to east or north to south. Longitudes tell us about north and south. But latitudes are running from west to east. Okay. Fine. Latitudes tell you about north and south. They run from west to east or east to west. They run horizontally, but they divide the earth in north and south. Latitude will tell you that whether we are in northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. That is why we are writing 23° north latitude. And longitudes, despite that they run from north and south, but they tell you about east and west. Areas north of equator, northern hemisphere. Areas south of equator, southern hemisphere. Areas west of prime meridian, western hemisphere. East, eastern hemisphere. Because lines are vertical, they are dividing the earth into west and east. So don't get confused if it is asked anywhere. Okay? And hence time zones are based on longitudes only. When you move from India to Dubai to UK to US, the time zone changes. It might happen that you are moving at the same latitude like this, but you are crossing all the longitudes, and hence the time zone changes. In US there are many time zones. India is also a very extensive country, but still in India we are having one time zone. ठीक है, everyone? Yes, if you have anything to ask, please go ahead. Yes, Shiva? Hmm. No, so latitudes, when we say, it is on the basis of the degree. So we have designed the latitude 0 degree, 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, right? As 23.5 degree. Yes. In that context, we can say that there are the infinite number of latitudes. At every point, we can draw a one line for it. Yes. What is the area covered by North Pole and South Pole? You tell me. True. True. That's why I said that it is just a point. It is 0 kilometer or 0 unit. We cannot express it. It is, yeah. Hmm. No, 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 no. Latitude, when we are talking about the distance of latitude, it is an imaginary line. It is not a real line. So it will not include any uphill or down low-lying areas. It is just on the basis of the periphery and the circumference of the earth. Yeah, it will be same. Yeah. Yeah. It, yeah. So imagine it in 3D. So just imagine a model that I am having a front view. In center I'm having a sun, and the earth is rotating like this. Yeah. 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 So take, no, no, no. Take the earth and the sun in the same orbital plane, na? So sun and earth has to be in the same orbital plane like this. Now if this is the scenario, even if you are having a top view, even then, let's say this is a tilted axis. So one portion is tilted towards the sun and one is away from the sun. If I am seeing it in a front view, it remains the same. If I am having a top view, even then it remains the same. No, if I am having the bottom view, so let's say this is, so let's say this is the earth, and let's say I am here having, I'm North Pole, and here I'm having a South Pole, and this is the sun. I'm having a bottom view like this. Still I can see that north is, it is what? I'm not able, it is what? Differentiating points. What do you mean by differentiating points? Yeah. Yeah. So let's say, so these, how these poles, okay, so in this, it's not required, and it is not a convention also. So for example, let's say this is the tilted axis of the earth, let's say, and this is the sun. So if I'm having a front view, let's say this is north and this is south, because the tilt axis is tilted. So if I'm seeing it from the front, the north axis is tilted towards the sun. True. If I'm having a top view, the north axis is tilted towards the sun. True. If I'm having a bottom view, even then this north axis is tilted towards the sun. Defining what? Rotation, like this. Ah, correct. So when we are talking about rotation, it will happen that let's say we are in June in northern hemisphere. Fine. So let's say now this earth is rotating. There will be a time when south pole will come towards the sun. True? Fine. We have just discussed that the sun is present in the northern hemisphere, let's say in June. So despite the point that both of these poles are coming closer to the sun in one day, but for how much duration? So it's not like that in the month of June, if we are saying the light is in the northern hemisphere, there is no light in the southern hemisphere. So when the earth is rotating, yes, there is a light in southern hemisphere, but more light is there in northern hemisphere because subsolar point is on tropic of Cancer. So both the poles are coming in this proximity, but because the duration of this interaction is different, hence we have a different outcomes in the length of days and nights. Right? Yes, Nandana? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. If we are talking about the summer solstice of northern hemisphere, then yes. No, no. Sun subsolar point will always remain between tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. This region, not beyond this. Rays, rays will reach. Solar rays will reach the polar areas also, but subsolar point won't reach, because subsolar point is that the angle of inclination of the solar rays should be 90 degree. So 90-degree rays cannot reach on the pole. Yes. When we are on equinox, the sun rays are vertical. The subsolar point is only on equator. Yes. Winter solstice on Capricorn. Yes. Okay. Mahesh. Yeah, yeah, please go ahead. 12 hours day, 12 hours night. At equator? No. No. You won't get it. At equator, the hours of the daylight will be less than 12 hours. If we are talking about the subsolar point on tropic of Cancer, that means sun is now on tropic of Cancer, which means on Cancer, let's say if this is Cancer, so here you are having daylight more than 12 hours. True. This is equator. Sun is not shining on equator now. So that means the 12 hours of day and light would be somewhat between the Cancer and equator, somewhat on this latitude. Because it is more than 12 hours, it is less than 12 hours, तो इसके बीच में वो किसी latitude पे होगा. Yes, Divyansh. Air and come again. Air and Just write it. Yeah, because your voice is echoing and I'm not able to hear it. What are you asking? Just write it in the chat box. Direct effect of wind and axis tilt, huh? Because there is a tilting and axis, so there is differential heating of earth, hence there are differences in pressure, hence the wind movement, right? Divyansh, fine. यार अब हाउ डू यू डिफाइन डायरेक्ट एंड इनडायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट, वो फिर वो सब्जेक्टिविटी हो जाएगा. But we will consider it as an impact of tilted axis of the earth and we will write it in our answer. Fine. So everyone, yeah. It rotates from west to east, and what is the second part of the statement? You also write it in the chat box. Just write it. Have you written? Am I audible? Poonam, you have raised your hand. So when wind distribution, we'll discuss about it in detail when we'll enter into climatology. Yeah, because for that first we need to understand what is a wind and how is it different from air. So we'll talk about it, right? Done. Mahesh, you just text me or whatever you are, because I'm not able to see it in the chat box also. So you have my number. Just text me, so I'll reply it. है ना? Chat में वो नहीं दिख रहा है. ठीक है, done. Okay, thank you everyone. All the best. Okay, okay.